Well, hello and welcome to another Opinions here, brought to you by Friendly to Seniors. We're going to be talking about Maley Drive with Thomas Price. Can I call you Tom?
Yes, you may.
Right. And Tom appeared at a special presentation presented by Friendly to Seniors and CARP, that's Canadian Association of Retired Persons, just a short time ago. And he's agreed to present this presentation for us here, courtesy of Friendly to Seniors. So glad you're here, Tom.
Thank you.
You know, just some curiosity. We know that you worked for INCO for a number of years. You've done consulting around the world. But how did you get involved with this particular concern, Maley Drive?
In the early 1980s, INCO was looking at expanding mining in the East End,
Right.
and looking at finding alternative low-cost methods of getting the ore from there to their mill on Clarabelle or in Coppercliff,
Yeah, right.
Clarabelle Mill,
Yeah.
and recognized that for the tonnages and everything they were looking at, a better route was needed than LaSalle Boulevard. So,
Building their own road, maybe.
yes,
How about that?
and that was my project at the time.
Is that right?
To define the scope of work and to work with the people in engineering to develop the costs for it and make a presentation.
Obviously, it never happened, though.
No, it didn't. The proposal went forward to the city at the time and was rejected by the city.
Wow, so that was the start.
That was, there may
How
have
many
been
years
other
ago now would that be?
That was the early 1980s. I'm not sure which exact year,
Wow.
but it was the early 1980s. And in my presentation, I'll show where the route went.
Right.
And everything. So
here we are now, 2015. A few years have gone by, and we're looking at Maley Drive, and really looking at it because, you know, we have a number of articles in the paper, and it's been in TV and so on and so forth. But we want to first of all mention that Friendly to Seniors and the CARP organization only presenting this as information, not taking any official position on behalf of any of the organizations. And I want to mention to you that I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I don't particularly agree with their position or the position of the city, but nevertheless, our organizations, Friendly to Seniors and CARP, are presenting this as an information for the public so they can hopefully be able to make up their own minds. Now, as we said here, there's been a lot of information, a lot of a full-page feature on one of the Saturday editions of the Star, and there's a little bit of view here, consultant critical of the project. We had an editorial comment by the editor of the Sudbury Star. Hesitation would kill the Maley Drive project. The Chamber of Commerce has come out with their position, which is basically identical to the city's position.
Is that
I believe.
the chamber that presented that?
Yes, this is well. This is the chamber reference to the city. So basically, they're on board. They're both the same with the benefits as they see it.
Okay.
For which the economic benefits, as they say, and the environmental benefits and the regional benefits and so on and so forth. And the fact that the funding is already in place, which there's some doubt about that. And in response to the chamber and the city, we have David Robinson, who's a professor of economics, who says that Maley Drive could be fiscal suicide. So, you know, we have a wide variety of opinions, and the citizens have some opinions as well, too. But there's some misconceptions that some of the citizens have, Tom, with respect to Maley. And one of the common misconceptions is this would be a road going north into the valley.
Yeah, nothing could be further from the truth.
I think that, you know, we have a little map here just now. You, of course, in your presentation, you're going to be showing this, you know, quite graphically. But really, it does show that Maley Drive is a route across the top of the city, basically. Yes. And another misconception is the fact that it's going to be a ring road like the bypass to the south of the city. This is going to be a bypass to the north of the city, and that's not the case either.
Not from what I can see, and I will get into that in my presentation, but no.
And if it is going to be that sort of ring road, it could be a very, very expensive ring road because it would involve a lot more than what we're looking at with respect to the presentation that you're going to give.
Quite assuredly.
So once again, thanks for taking the time to do this presentation, and we're looking forward to it. So
thank you.
And thanks for you folks for taking the time as well too to be involved with this very important, very expensive project. And it could determine, and I think this is the main reason that many seniors groups are involved and are concerned, and that's with respect to taxation, because there's concern that that projects, mega projects like this, would add quite a bit to the tax base, and that's of concern to many people who are on fixed incomes, which includes, well, most seniors, and of course it's of concern to many other residents of the community as well too. So thanks very much, Tom, and we're looking forward to the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, or good day, I guess it is. Pleased to make this presentation to you people. As indicated in the lead up to this, it's about Maley Drive and moving a city, and that city is the Greater City, or City of Greater Sudbury. In making the presentation, I'd like to be noted that it's been privately prepared and it's the property of myself, and reproduction of it is forbidden without any prior written consent, which the film in this case has that consent. I'd also like to point out there's been no input or endorsement by any employee of the City of Greater Sudbury, including councillors and staff. All of the City of Greater Sudbury material that's referenced in the presentation is publicly available on the website of the City of Greater Sudbury. You can access it by going to the website and looking for it. The Maley Drive proposal for me came into being in the early 1980s while I was working for Inco, at which time Inco was considering bringing far more ore from the east end of the city into the Clarabelle Mill in Coppercliff. And at that time, rail haulage was getting expensive. They wanted to look at truck haulage, but didn't want to put all the trucks on LaSalle Boulevard. In the engineering department, we put together a proposal to extend Frood Road past Frood Mine, crossing over, at that time, Highway 69 North, now Municipal Road 80, with an overpass, continuing north and then eastward to the intersection of Falconbridge Road and Skeed Road. The road would have bypassed all of New Sudbury and bypassed all of Garson. It was a two-lane road. There were no intersections. When the trucks or vehicles got on the road, they could travel from that intersection to Frood Road with no stops and no slowdowns for any intersections. Very high efficiency for trucking. We anticipated about 20,000 tons per day of ore and sand flux from the Garson pit, which was a total of about 1,300 trucks per day of mining material. Other trucking and cars would have been extra to that, but the main interest of ours was to get the trucks across without interfering with the city. Today, the ore would have come from Lindsay Mine going out to Falconbridge, come from Kirkwood Mine coming back to Clarabelle Mill, from Garson Mine, the sand flux from Garson Pit, and in the future, Victor Deep Mine out by Wanapede Lake. Victor Deep Mine is still in the future. Kirkwood Mine has been closed down. Lindsay Mine has been worked out, and the only material left from mines is the Garson Mine and some sand from the Garson Pit. We are now looking at Maley Drive, extending it to purportedly do the same job. A few shortcomings of it: it does not bypass Garson, it does not bypass much of the east end of the city, and it doesn't give a clear route for trucks across the top of the city. In addition to that, the ore haulage and mine material haulage has decreased to about 9,000 tons per day, which is the equivalent of 450 trucks per day of mining material. There is a discrepancy that you'll notice there between the tons per day and the number of trucks between the two. That's because the number of trucks today is based on 40-ton loads as to opposed to a maximum of 30 at the time this road was planned. In evaluating today's alternative for getting across the top of the city, I use a process called process evaluation. In that evaluation system, you first of all identify your goals, and it's very important that those goals get identified very clearly, otherwise you will never meet them. Secondly, you need to look at all the input variables that go into meeting those goals. Again, extremely critical. If you fail to record some variables or you input wrong information, your goals will not get met. Based on those input variables and the goals, you can then design a system of controls to draw the variables into achieving the goals. In the case of the Maley Drive proposal, the first goal that was identified and has been in most of the reports was efficient transportation of mining materials. The second one was LaSalle Boulevard truck damage. A third one was core east-west traffic capacity, and a fourth one was ring road component. Taking a look at those goals, the variables that will affect all of those and whether you can meet those are traffic densities, destinations, ease of access onto the road, and the cost and timing of any road that you do build. The proposal to do Maley Drive has based the controls to bring those variables into the goals on extending Maley Drive. I'd like to now examine those goals with you and the variables and see whether we can indeed pull the variables into meeting the goals. What is the Maley Drive proposal? In the 2011 version, and unfortunately the city has not chosen to share the latest versions with anybody, so the 2011 will be it for my presentation. Essentially, the 2011 version was upgrading LaSalle Extension from the CPR overpass next to the old Highway 144 through to Frood Road, 4-laning from Frood Road through to Berry Down Road, and upgrading Maley Drive from Berry Down Road through to Falconbridge Road. It meant upgrading Berry Down to get up to Maley. It meant extending Montrose up to there, and it meant altering LaSalle Boulevard at the interconnection between the 4-lane and the existing LaSalle. In doing so, there would be an interconnection with the snow dump. We still have to get rid of snow. An intersection or a roundabout was envisaged for the Frood Road interconnection. Another roundabout was envisaged for the Collège Boreal intersection. A half a cloverleaf was planned for the LaSalle connection, a full cloverleaf for the Municipal Road 80 connection, a roundabout for the Montrose Extension connection, a roundabout for Maley Berry Down, and a roundabout for Lansing Maley Drive. In addition to that, a grade separation over the main CN rail line was envisaged and is supposedly included in the cost. In selling this, it has also been proposed that it could act as a ring road. The ring road component would come out here and go down and interconnect to Highway 17 East. In 2011, that was seen as a straight intersection, and I notice on the latest drawings they have a full interchange, four-leaf or a cloverleaf for that interchange. If we need roundabouts at these intersections, one has to assume that this is a busier intersection. You would have a roundabout there. LaSalle would be extended on out and join in with the ring road, a roundabout, and 3 new grade separations would be required to connect LaSalle to the ring road component and to get the ring road over the CN main line. Mining material transportation. What you're looking at is the truck route map from the city of Greater Sudbury. The mines that come into discussion are numerous. As you can see, they're dotted all over the place, but they're not all active. Ore from all of these mines, with the exception of one up in here now, goes to either the Strathcona mill up in Onaping or the Clarabelle mill in Coppercliff. Whether it's coming from here, wherever it comes from, those are the only two milling operations in the greater city. The Lindsay mine, as I mentioned earlier, is no longer operating. Kirkwood mine is no longer operating. Victor Deep is still not come into being, and this was Moose Mountain, and Moose Mountain is no longer operational. It's been closed out. There is other mining up in this area, and we'll get into a discussion on those at a later slide. Looking at truck traffic from point to point, if we take the new nickel rim deposit, comes out Skeed Road to Radar Road, and if you take a distance from that point to the point in Chelmsford, because that material is going out to Strathcona, and compare it, that route through the valley is 15 kilometers one way. If you come down and go across the proposed Maley Drive, it will be 22 kilometers, a difference of 7 kilometers greater to go on Maley. That's 15 extra kilometers round trip. If you look at the slurry trucks that bring the minerals back from the mill at Strathcona to the Falconbridge smelter, when they get to Chelmsford, they have to go from point B to point C. In doing so, the Valley East route, going across here, is 27 kilometers, and coming down and going across Maley Drive is 22 kilometers. 5 kilometers greater to go through the valley, 10 kilometers greater round trip. Obviously, trucking will want to go via Maley Drive for that material. Looking at companies that service the mining industry, the major industrial park for service companies is in Walden Industrial Park, both north and south of the Municipal Road 55. There's a beginning of one in Chelmsford. There is a well-established but smaller one in Valcarron. There is one at Murray Mine, and there is one out in Coniston. Interestingly enough, for these people to get to any of the west end here, it is faster and more economical for them to go through the southeast-southwest bypass to get to them. Trucking companies. In the Walden Industrial Park, there's a total of 5 major trucking companies. There is one major trucking company at Murray Mine. That is it for the major trucking companies. The trucking companies that haul the slurry, that company is in the Walden Industrial Park. The ones that haul a lot of the ore is at Murray Mine. They are not closely related to Maley Drive. Why is that so? If you take a look at the Sudbury Basin, or Chelmsford Basin, or the Valley as it's called, this was the original city of Sudbury. This is the rim around which most of the ore deposits are found. Some of them spread out a bit due to fault lines, but typically that is the minerals. When Sudbury amalgamated with the outlying communities, it broadened the scope to include almost all of that mineral deposit. Okay, so what does that mean as to the future of Sudbury and Maley Drive? Well, this is where Maley Drive is. To put that into perspective, the nickel rim mine is up here. The fastest and easiest and cheapest way to get it to the mill in Onaping is through the valley. One would have to wonder why we're not upgrading these roads for trucking instead of doing Maley Drive. Additional to that, if that's the case, you can bet that most of the minerals in that huge block of deposit are going to either concentrate themselves in Coppercliff or out here, and therefore access to here or here will be more important than driving across here. There's been mention made in the paper about we need to plan for Broken Hammer mine, open pit mine. Broken Hammer open pit mine or deposit is out here on the north rim. The city of Sudbury city center is down here south of the south rim, and the ore from there, and you've also probably heard of the Podolsky mine, but the ore from those mines are right now going to Timmins. If they're going to Timmins, they don't come down here, go across Maley Drive and then back out to 144. They will take the short route to 144 and up to Timmins. Additional to that, the ore in that open pit was estimated a year ago, July 15th, 2014, by the owner, Walbridge, at 193,000 tons. That does not include waste rock, that is just ore. The extraction rate was 800 tons per day. They forecasted at that time a mining completion of the open pit of April 2015. That's a month from now. That open pit mine is expected to be played out at that time. Maley Drive, even if we could build it this year, would never benefit from it. Why it was brought into the discussion, I have no idea. Let's take a look at east-west traffic. These are the streets in Sudbury, and the thickness of them is weighted by the number of vehicle passes or vehicle movements per day. They are based on a transportation study by the City of Greater Sudbury in 2005. I understand that there's a study done in 2010, but I was unable to access the numbers from there. However, the major traffic patterns haven't changed, so the only thing that may have happened is the volumes of these may have gone up slightly. Superimposed on the streets, I have placed the major destination points for these streets. The shopping center at LaSalle Boulevard, Berrydown Road, or New Sudbury Shopping Center as it's called. The shopping at the Kingsway and Berrydown Road. Shopping and downtown businesses in downtown Sudbury. Some shopping at Leon's and the Staples and the Brick on Notre Dame. And shopping along Falconbridge Road on the east side of Falconbridge. Additional to those is Collège Boreal, the Taxation Center, Cambrian College, and Laurentian Universities as major destination points. When we look at these road vehicle movements, it becomes obvious that we've created a loop. Not only have we created a loop, we've created a bidirectional loop. Traffic goes both ways around here, to and from, and some of it goes back and forth, but unfortunately the study done in 2005 did not identify the volume of that. As well, if you'll notice, between Paris Street and this is really Lawrence Street, it's MR 55 once you get out past the old city limits, but it's Lawrence Street, has a total of 55,000 vehicle movements per day, contributing to that loop. By contrast, LaSalle Extension in Notre Dame only contributes 30,000. I'm sorry, 40,000. No, 30,000, sorry. So this is a major contributor to the traffic loop, and it isn't addressed. Regional Road, Municipal Road 55, coming into this today, is in absolutely terrible condition. And it remains that way year after year after year. Paris Street has been redone several times. Even below the Ramsey Lake turnoff, Paris Street still sees 27,000 vehicle movements per day. What do we do about it? Well, the city is proposing that we do the Maley extension. That this is going to cure this, and make life a whole lot easier. So let's look at the goals again. In doing that, we talk about efficient transportation of materials, less traffic for trucks to maneuver in, fewer stops and starts, truck damage, fewer trucks. There's about 400 to 500 mine haul truck trips less if you do this. Fewer light vehicles. If you take light vehicle movements into here that might take advantage of this, it would appear about 6,000. And I know those numbers don't agree with city numbers, but realistically and logically, that is what could be expected. Core east-west traffic capacity, relief for Kingsway traffic. I won't even get into that discussion. I think everybody that sees this will be able to understand that this offers very little towards Kingsway traffic. Relief for LaSalle traffic, it may offer some minor amount, but it's hard to evaluate. Ring road component to Highway 17 east and west, well, that ring road would come out here, and it's very difficult to see how that ring road would impact on any of this. LaSalle Boulevard truck damage. AASHO is the American Association of State Highway Officials. In the early 1960s, they came to the stark realization that their interstate roads and main arterial roads were seeing less than 40% of the expected life. Accordingly, they got together and they built 6 test tracks, full-scale test tracks, outside of the city of Ottawa, Illinois, where they set up tests to determine what the wear factors were on highways, which vehicles caused the most wear, and what type of road bed was the best to sustain that type of traffic. They evaluated them for different types of trucks and cars and established what's called an ESAL value, which is an engineering standard allowable load. They set the parameter for that at 18,000 pounds per axle. So compared to an 18,000 pound axle load, a car will have an ESA value of about 0.0008. As you go up in axles and weights, these go up. To make it understandable for common people like myself, they also arranged it in terms of relativity. One car trip is equal to, well, let's take 851 car trips would be equal to 1 bus. So for every bus, you can count 851 cars. For a DS5 truck, for every truck, that's the same as 2,898 cars. Interestingly enough, the mine haul trucks fall into a DS8, or equivalent to 1,483 car trips. Also interesting is the fact that garbage trucks account for the equivalency of 1,279 cars. What are the damage factors? Assume 50% for trucks, 50% for light vehicles. And you can change, change these percentages, but it really doesn't mean anything when we get into the latter part of this slide. So frequency, speed, static load, and dynamic load are all factors. And to give some type of reality to what static load and dynamic load is, if you place a pane of glass on a table and put 5 hammers on it, you can slide the hammers across the glass without breaking it, and that is a static load. Even though it's moving, it's static vertical relative to the glass. Take one of those hammers, lift it up a foot and drop it, that's a dynamic load, and the glass breaks. So does pavement under dynamic load. In spite of these factors though, the major contributing factor to road damage is road design and construction. If the road is not designed for the service it's supposed to see, it is going to fail. It will either fail prematurely or it will fail almost instantly. Road maintenance. For the same factors, same distance, and again assuming 50%, and you'll see why that isn't important in a moment. The amount of damage that's created, whether you have those vehicles traveling on one road, LaSalle, or you split it between LaSalle and Maley, all you've done is split the damage. It's still going to be the same amount of damage as long as you have the same amount of vehicles and the same amount of loads. So what you've done is said, okay, we're not going to damage LaSalle as much, we're going to build a new road we can damage. The same applies to Ware. Unless you decrease the number of vehicles using it, or the types, it makes no difference. Where there is a difference is in maintenance. For example, snow removal on LaSalle is one road to keep clear of snow. Once you build the Maley Drive extension, you've now increased that by 1.5 times because it's a 4-lane road. You have 2 lanes in each direction to keep clear. Shoulder repairs. You've now gone from 0 shoulder repairs due to concrete curbs and sidewalks to 2 2-lane roads where shoulders have to be repaired. And everybody in the city has seen the shoulders after a heavy rainstorm, the crews out filling gravel in the washouts. Intersection maintenance. Well, even though you've doubled the amount of major intersections, I've taken a factor of 0.75 because I think we can do the intersections more efficiently than we are doing them today. Drainage maintenance. Today, the drainage on LaSalle is done through storm sewers into catchment basements along the road and down through the sewer system. Even though this is open culverts which are prone to plugging, I've said we would leave the extra road at the same, so we will be doubling the drainage maintenance. Law enforcement. Well, we've doubled the roads, we have to double the law enforcement. So in summary, the damage amount and wear amount have simply been split between 2 roads. Our maintenance costs are going to go up dramatically though. Is it worth the extra maintenance cost to split the damage? I have to question that, and I expect that you will be questioning it as well. To give a feel for the trucks, this is U.S. truck classifications. The Canadian truck classifications have different numbers. And the numbers that you see on here, Ontario has what they call SPIF numbers now, and they are lower than this because they've instituted a safe, productive, infrastructure-friendly criteria for truck designs. The red numbers are the number of equivalent car trips for each of these types of vehicles. The SPIF numbers are based on adjusting the wheel loadings to get better load distribution to all the axles and redesigning suspension systems to minimize the impact loading that I talked about earlier. They have been effective. These numbers have gone down. Not much, I must admit, but they have come down a bit. To give a feel for what happens in garbage trucks, that's essentially this type of truck with an overhung load at the back. They typically run very lightly loaded. Because of that, the bounce factor and the overhung load at the back gives a wear factor that the American Association of State Highway Officials rates at 1,279 cars. Not far off this. If you double those for blue box trucks, you can see what will happen. You'll have the equivalent of 2,500 car trips. Interestingly, 2 bus trips are equivalent or higher than 1 heavy mine haul truck. Ring road component. In taking a look at the ring road component, we have to assume that that would be a benefit getting from Coniston to Chelmsford or going the other direction. Let's take a quick look at it. If you follow this Maley Drive ring road, it's a total of about 41 kilometers from point to point. In the design as proposed in 2011, there are 7 roundabouts. There are 3 stoplights, 2 in Azilda and 1 in Chelmsford before you get to here. There are 2 through interchanges and 1 diversion interchange. A through interchange is one where the traffic does not need to slow down to go through the interchange. It's a straight through, similar to the four-leaf clover, the cloverleaf design that is proposed for Municipal Road 80 and the extension. A diversion interchange is where you have to slow down and you are diverted to another road. The through interchanges that we're talking about here is one at Municipal Road 80 and one at LaSalle Boulevard connection. It's a half of one. The diversion interchange is the connection onto the old 144. The stoplights are still out here. If instead a vehicle decides to go down the southeast bypass, take the southwest bypass, and up 144, that distance is about 42 kilometers. While that may not seem logical, please bear in mind that you go north, go across, come back south, go back north again, and on out. This, you come south, go across and north. There are 3 through interchanges, one at 69 South, one at Long Lake Road, one at Municipal Road 55, one diversion interchange at 144. That is it. For truck traffic leaving that light, getting to that light, they do not need to slow down except for that one diversion, and they don't need to stop there. West component of the ring road. The outlined area here is the tailings area, the smelting complex, and the slag dump for Vail. It is very difficult to imagine Vail allowing a ring road going through there. So one would have to assume any future west connection would either have to come up here or go all the way out to 144 or come down here to the Big Nickel bypass and around here to get out to here. But how does that get down and connect to the south end? Would they come on out to here? Getting from here down through here is Kelly Lake Road and Southview Drive. Would the proposal be to make that a component of the ring road? If so, it hasn't been shown anywhere. The obvious conclusion that would have to be drawn at this point without further information as to what their plans are is the west component is not feasible. So let's go back and look at our goals again. Well, the efficient transportation of mining materials, there may be minimal improvement, but it will be minimal. LaSalle Boulevard truck damage, yeah, it won't occur on LaSalle, but we'll still have the same amount of damage. Minimal benefit on the core east-west traffic capacity. And the city has a computer program that says that that is not the case, that there will be a more equitable splitting of the traffic, but I would point out that all computer programs are blind logic. If you don't put the right input into them, or if you fail to put in a key input, they do not give you the correct answer. Ring road component doesn't appear feasible in the long term because you can't have the west connection without great mileage differences. So where does that leave us? Well, traffic densities, destinations, ease of access, cost and timing have all come into these, although we haven't talked about cost and timing, and I will refrain from doing that till the end of the presentation. Extending Maley Drive does not appear to get us from here to here. So we have to make another input variable, that being looking at alternatives towards meeting these goals. And in doing that, we also have to look at interferences during construction, both to traffic and to power. One alternative to relieve the east-west traffic is an extension of Hawthorne over to connect to Notre Dame. There are plans in the future to do that. The city has it in the plans. Why it's not going ahead at this point, I'm not sure. I haven't been able to find out. In doing so, we would need a grade separation over the rail line that goes through here. Otherwise, there's already an intersection here, and there's already an intersection, out here on Barrydown. Upgrade Howie Drive and Bancroft. Yeah, we're going to have to interfere with some privacy issues with people then living on a more heavily loaded corridor, but do we have a choice? That would relieve and take a lot of load off the Kingsway. Another alternative for the valley traffic is to extend Barrydown Road from Maley Drive out to Main Street, and I believe that is Bodson in Valcarin. It would include an extension of Main Street out to connect with this. You would have to upgrade Barrydown from Cambrian College up to Maley, and you would need to upgrade Main Street from Municipal Road 80 over to the new connection for Maley, or for Barrydown. In doing this, we have to be well aware of the accident frequency in the McRae Heights area. If there's anyone in this city who isn't aware of the fatalities and the major accidents that's occurred in that stretch, they haven't been watching the news for many, many years. This would allow some relief to that. Interferences. In doing the Maley proposal, there will be interferences while the interconnection at the snow dump is created, and I haven't shown that on here. There will definitely be interferences while a roundabout is built at Frood Road and the extension. There will be interferences building the roundabout from Collage Boreal. There will be major interferences during the restructuring of the LaSalle-Maley connection. Major interferences again at the Notre Dame or Municipal Road 80 Cloverleaf. Part of that due to the fact that in this area, Municipal Road 80 is being diverted over and back again. It's will go through a major misalignment, or a major alignment, primarily due to the fact that there's a major tower, power tower there, carrying two 230,000 volt lines, one right beside it of two 115,000 volt lines. Additionally, this side of this whole road, there is a 230,000 volt line. Construction through that area will all have to be done with controlled blasts. They can't go in and just blast and haul. Any fly rock, fracturing of the bases under these towers would be a major situation. So the power is a major factor in there. Interferences at the east end where Maley hooks up with Falconbridge Road. This is Hydro One's main power station. It's called the Martindale Transformer Station. Fed from the Ontario grid, distributes out to most of the areas around Sudbury. Putting a 4-lane highway through adjacent to that transformer station, together with a grade separation over the rail line, isn't in the books. The height limitations under these major power lines, and there are ones coming out here as well, would limit you to either having to increase the height of the standoffs in this transformer station or moving the road to where I've indicated here. The power lines are high enough out at this end that you could do the grade separation and still be under the wires. Additional to the height clearances, there is a distinct reality of salt damage to those power cables. Incidentally, replacing those standoffs in the transformer station means power outages for everyone that has to be replaced. If there's a grade separation out here, it would not only have to do this, but this would interfere with traffic back to here, so either a new road is required out here, or we extend the grade separation to allow an underpass here and another one here. Interferences for the Maley Drive, or for the Berry Down extension. Some interference at that intersection while they reconstruct it to join in the new extension. Berry Down would need to be upgraded from Cambrian College up to Maley, and Main Street would require an upgrade. There would be traffic interferences while that's done. Again, keeping in mind the fatalities and the accidents in this area, a lot of this traffic could be diverted over and down Berry Down. In fact, almost all of the valley traffic heading towards Cambrian College would undoubtedly take this route. Most of the traffic from Capriol, Hanmer, Val Thérèse, and a lot of Valcarin would take this route. Truck traffic currently going from Nickel Rim through Valley East and out to Strathcona Mill would find a much easier route just coming across, down and out. Seems to make sense to me. I don't know about anybody watching. Recently, the proponents have added another goal. That's that the proposal opens up real estate for housing development. Well, in evaluating that and taking a look at it from an objectives point of view and the variables, you have to look at new construction to start with. New construction has been in steady decline since 2007, with a small surge in 2011 and a forecast minor recovery in 2015-16. The primary reason for that surge appears to have been the imposing of the city of a development fee, and people rushed to get their building permits and that and get started before the development fee came into being. A number of development sites are ready to go as soon as demand catches up with supply, and I will get into that in the next slide. Housing developments driven by population growth. Population growth since 2006 has averaged about 0.03%, or 500 people per year. These are the numbers. It averages at 500. If you look in terms of housing and say 2 people per house, that's roughly 250 houses. If you say there's the odd one with 3, it's about 200 houses per year that it's been increasing by. The average cost of the housing has grown since 2009 with comparable decline in sales. There's the cost line, there's the sales. None of these are my numbers. These are all from Central Mortgage and Housing. They're available on the internet. So the goal of opening real estate for housing development from this appears to be very limited. However, that's not the end of the story. If you take a look at the housing starts in Q3 of 2013 versus 2014, the housing starts in Q3 of 2014 were down by 40%. For the entire 2 years, they were also down by 40%. Housing under construction between the 2 quarters was down by 15%. Housing completions between the 2 quarters were down by 30%. The year-to-year was down by 15%. That is explainable by housing under construction being completed in 2014. Housing completed but not absorbed, and that means that they weren't purchased, is up by 38%. That means there's an increase in 38% of the number of houses that are ready to be sold, but there's no buyers. The number of houses that were absorbed or purchased is down by 20% between the 2 quarters and down by 11% between the 2 years. Additional to that, Sudbury has the highest vacancy rate in Ontario. All of that is from Central Mortgage and Housing, these numbers and this. From city planning documents in May 2013, there were 5,800 lots approved and zoned for housing. If we say that 400 of those were absorbed in the last 2 years, that leaves 5,400 still to be built on. If we're increasing at 200 houses per year, as you saw on the last slide, that's a total of 27 years of available lots that can be built on. 27 years, and somebody is saying we need to open real estate for housing? Cost input variables. First of all, the scopes and values that I'm presenting here are not a project approval level or fund appropriation level. You would never approve money to be spent on this quality of estimating. However, the scopes and the values of the presented options are relative to each other and are suitable for option discrimination. In other words, all of the costs have been based on the same type of estimating. Interferences with utilities, lines, etc. are minor in comparison to the overall project, and they've been allowed for in the contingencies. The costs that you're going to see do not include the ring road, easterly connection. Previously presented by the city in 2011 was a cost of $115 million. Escalating that by Government of Canada escalation figures brings it up to $125 million. If we assume a plus or minus 10% accuracy on that number, it means that the project will cost somewhere between $112 and $138 million. However, that is an appropriation grade estimate. If you say that you're looking at an order of magnitude estimate instead of minus 10 and plus 25%, the cost range goes up to 112 to 156 million. Independently costed versions of this for the Maley extension came to a 2015 cost of 140 million. Interestingly enough, that is partway and well within that range, indicating that the methods used for this aren't really too different from anything that was used for producing this. This is definitely only minus 10 plus 25, and therefore has a range of 126 to 175 million. The Barry Down extension has a estimated cost of 60 million based on the same estimating techniques at a cost accuracy of minus 10 plus 25, has a cost range of 54 to 75 million. Taking the high end of the ranges, there's a $100 million saving. However, both of those two options, in order to accomplish the objectives stated for the project, will require the equivalency of a Hawthorne extension and the Howe-Bancroft upgrade. Those are estimated at 30 to 35 million, again with the accuracy of minus 10 plus 25, gives you that type of cost range. So you can add roughly 80 million to these two numbers. That comes to 255 million. This comes to 155 million for still a cost difference of 100 million. So we can do Barry Down extension, the Hawthorne extension, and the Bancroft Drive for roughly $100 million less than the Maley. Take a look back at our variables and our objectives. Land development's been added as a goal. Traffic densities, well, there's minimal gain. Destinations, there's no change. Ease of access, well, the ease of access got easier with the alternatives that have been looked at. Cost and timing, the alternatives have presented lower costs. Alternatives towards the goals, well, the alternatives offer a higher potential than the original Maley Drive did. Interferences during construction, well, they're minimized with the alternatives. Land development's population driven, and that's not there at the present. So, where does that leave us in designing controls to bring these variables back towards meeting these objectives? it says we should be pursuing alternatives instead of Maley Drive. In going forward from here, I would like to leave, oh, I can't forget this. Also suggested recently is Sudbury should cash in on provincial and federal funding and build the Maley extension. And I've actually had it proposed to me and stated to me that this is like free money. We should be taking that free money and spending it. Even if Maley isn't a good idea, we can spend the money here to our benefit. This is the Canadian debt. This is the rate it's been growing at. This is 2013. This is the provincial debt and the rate it's been growing at. In hard number terms, this is the Canadian debt, and these are in billions of dollars. This is the rate that's been increasing, in spite of governments who say they're going to save us money and get us back, help us out, reduce our deficits. Deficits are still an increase in debt. The Ontario government increase in debt, and it's been increasing at this rate. These are numbers out of StatsCan, and while some of us might not like StatsCan, they're the best numbers we have available. If the debts of other provinces are added in, the total is well over $1 trillion. That $1 trillion is equivalent to $90,000 per household in this country, across the country. That is in addition to all your personal debt, your mortgage, your car loan, furniture loans. So that's you, any household here owes $90,000 over above your personal loans. This has been misconstrued since the presentation was originally made and interpreted that the $90,000 was what Maley Drive was going to cost. That was not said in the presentation at all. What was said is what I've just related to you. However, all of the money, whether it comes from provincial or federal, is taxpayer dollars, and all of that provincial and federal dollars will be borrowed against future taxation revenues. It's also been stated that that money gets distributed over everybody in Canada. Well, that's true, but if everybody in Canada does the same thing, we have to pick up our share. It doesn't matter whether other people are doing it or not. So it still comes back to our pocket, no matter how they cut it. Additionally, the City of Greater Sudbury debt repayment, in the budget online, the debt repayment was $5.7 million. In 2015, the budget includes for $10,400,000. That's a $4.7 million increase in 1 year, or an 82% increase in the amount of debt repayment that we're making between the 2 years. Considering all of this and this, the question that has to come up is, should responsible Sudburians increase these numbers for the proposed Maley Drive? Are the benefits there? Does it justify further indebting ourselves, further increasing our tax burdens for what it's going to offer? I know my opinion, but I leave all this to you for your opinions. And in concluding, I would just ask everybody keep in mind this picture in your mind as we go forward. The primary destinations in Sudbury traffic are the downtown shopping and business area, the New Sudbury shopping, and I understand that a big Canadian Tire store is going out here, the Kingsway shopping area as primary destinations. As secondary destinations is shopping on Notre Dame, Bridge Road. Tertiary destinations are Collège Boreal, Taxation Center, Cambrian College, Laurentian University. Together with that, the high density traffic in the city is on these routes. What is proposed is that. What our city appears to have missed is that in recent years, downtown Sudbury grew and moved. This is now downtown Sudbury. We have not planned properly for the downtown encompassing this. Our road network doesn't take it into account. Our traffic volumes have increased to accommodate it, but we have not designed to take care of it. And I leave that with everyone going away from this. Thank you very much for your time.